Hello, 5th grade. Today we're going to work on lesson 8-4 on scaling fractions. What that means is we're going to decide if the product of a fraction and another fraction is greater than the fraction we started with, the same as the fraction we started with, or less than the fraction we started with. So we're going to do some examples. We're going to start, this is on page 131 in your workbook. I'm just doing an example first. We're going to start with the fraction 3/4. We're going to multiply it times 1/2. 3/4 times 1/2. And we want to know if the product is going to be greater than 3/4, less than 3/4, or equal to 3/4. I'm multiplying it by 1/2, which is less than 1. So when I multiply 3/4 times 1/2, I get 3/8. And 3/8 is less than 3/4. So when I multiply a fraction by a fraction less than 1, I get a fraction that is less than what I started with. Let's take 3/4 again, and this time, let's multiply it by 2/2. We know that 2/2 is equal to 1. So when I multiply 3/4 times 2/2, I get 6/8. 6/8 is equivalent to 3/4. Because whenever I multiply any number by 1, I get the same number. So if I multiply a fraction by another fraction that is equivalent to 1, I get an equivalent fraction. But I can take 3/4, and now I'm going to multiply it by 3/2. 3/2 is an improper fraction. It's greater than 1. So if I multiply 3/4 times 3/2, I get 9/8. 9/8 is greater than 1. So therefore, it's greater than 3/4. 9/8 is greater than 3/4. So when I multiply a fraction by a fraction that's less than 1, I get a product that is less than my first factor. If I multiply a fraction by another fraction that's equal to 1, I get an equivalent fraction. And when I multiply a fraction by a fraction greater than 1, I get a product that is greater than my original fraction. So here on page 131, I have to multiply and then decide if the product is going to be less than, greater than, or equal to the first factor. It says complete the comparison or the sentence. So number 1, I have to do 7/8 times 5/3. That's what that's asking me to do on page 131. Number 1 is 7/8 times 5/3. So the first thing I need to figure out is 5/3 greater than 1 or less than 1? Well, my numerator is more than my denominator. 5 is greater than 3. So 5/3 is greater than 1, which means that my product, when I multiply, is going to be greater than 7/8 because I'm multiplying by a number that's greater than 1. So right here, you'll write the product is greater than 7/8. All right, number 2, 2/3 times 4/4. Well, I know that 4/4 equals 1. So I know that the product is going to be equal to 2/3 because I'm just multiplying it by 1. Number 3, 6/5 times 3/7. Well, 3/7 is less than 1. So therefore, when I multiply 3/7 times 3/4, I'm going to get something that's smaller than 6/5 because I'm multiplying it by something less than 1. So the product is less than 6/5. All right, number 4, 3/2 times 5/5. Okay, 5/5 is equivalent to 1. So the product is going to be equal to 3/2. All right, number 5, 1/5 times 1/5. Well, the second factor, 1/5, is less than 1. So that means when I multiply it times 1/5, I'm going to get a product that is less than 1/5, because this factor is less than 1. Number 6, 4/3 times 4/3. Both factors are the same, but the second factor is greater than 1 because the numerator is greater than the denominator. So if I multiply this fraction by a fraction greater than 1, I'm going to get a product that is greater than 4/3, greater than. And number 7, 6/7 times 2/2. 2/2 is equal to 1, so the product will be equal to 6/7. Number 8, 8/3 times 6/5. 6/5 is greater than 1, so my product will be greater than my original fraction of 8/3. And number 9, 10/11 times 7/8. 7/8 is less than 1, so my product will be less than 10/11 because I am multiplying by a fraction that's less than 1. So less than will go there.